Welcome. We're so glad that you're joining us today for our Back to Work pop-up. This is a piece of our Back to Work Bootcamp that we want to share with you today, and we feel like it's a really important piece. It's Job Search with Grit. We know that most of the time when we start our job search, we start working on our tools. We gather a resume, we practice for interviews, but there's a really important piece about can we actually put those tools into practice, and do we have barriers that are stopping us from moving forward? And that's what we want to look at today. How can we identify those barriers that are stopping us from making the best use of the tools that we have a plan to move forward? My name is Lois Flaggy. I'm with the Flagstaff Community Adult Learning Program, based in Killam in Flagstaff County, which is in Alberta, not in Arizona. I've had to explain that a few times. And with me today is my friend Cindy, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Cindy Heidecker. I represent the Painter Community Adult Learning Council. We provide adult learning opportunities to learners in the County of Painter, and that includes the communities of Coronation, Castor, Brownfield, Halkirk, and all points in between.
Great, thanks, Cindy. So we all want to be more successful in the job search process. But sometimes it just seems like we're hitting that brick wall that stops us from moving forward. Today, we're going to examine how we can break down that wall to move ahead. And we're going to start by talking about grit. Now, grit could be on sandpaper, but that's not the kind of grit I'm thinking about today. I'm thinking about that ability to find a way forward, to keep going even when we're having tough times and hitting obstacles and setbacks, to be able to persist after the setbacks that often come our way when we're working, when we're on that job search journey. So let's think about that. How much grit do we have? Grit is not just an inborn ability, it's a skill that we can build, we can improve and develop. Today, I'm saying if I was to consider my grit level, I'm gonna say about 7. I'm feeling like I've got a lot of what I need, but there's a few things that might be more difficult. And I'm gonna ask you, Cindy, what grit level would you be on a scale of 1 to 10?
Well, you know, today, Lois, I think I'm sitting just a little bit below you at about a 6.5. I do have a few little things tugging and pulling here or there, and I could use just a little bit more of that grit or perseverance to help me pull forward. So today, only about a 6.5.
And I think it varies from day to day. So our question is, how do we make that number increase? How do we gain the ability and the confidence to keep going? And I think that you have a great example of one way that we can do that, Cindy. So can you share that with us?
Yes, I sure can. Now, what we want to talk about when we're talking about grit and how we can break that down is we've got a tool that we talk about barriers and obstacles, identifying our own barriers and obstacles. And right now, I'm going to show you what our tool looks like. Really, what it looks like is it is a brick wall. And on that brick wall, we have the title of My Barriers or Obstacles. And I want to just kind of set the scene with you is that sometimes barriers can be inside of us or they can be on the outside. And as we look at this wall, it looks quite daunting. But this is where I want you to think about the metaphor of our challenge for you today is we're going to put some examples in 1 or 2 or 3 of these bricks, and we're going to talk about the importance of chipping away 1 brick at a time, knocking down one of those little bricks to make that wall less daunting. we're going to try to bring or break that wall down. And to do that, we need to identify what our barriers or obstacles are. And right now, we're going to talk about a few examples that you may have encountered yourself or that we have encountered as well. And one of those obstacles when you're looking for a job and you're thinking, how can I improve my grit factor? What do I need to chip away at? Maybe in that job search process, perhaps you need certification, some more training. Maybe that training comes in the form of, maybe it's nursing that you're wanting to go into, or maybe it's instrumentation. What is that training certification that you might need to apply for that job that you're truly looking for? And this is where we encourage you to keep those creative juices flowing, brainstorm as many of those barriers that might be into place. Another barrier that may have come upon us is bad luck. And let me tell you, I think we can all relate to that bad luck feature, because when situations arise within our world or in our communities that either stop the economy or slow life down, we have no control over many pieces of that. And that just kind of is attributed to some bad luck. And we need to figure out what we can do to chip away at that bad luck. How do we turn it around? A third one might come in the form of maybe it's bad advice. You might want to think back to your high school days when you started brainstorming career options and looking at what our skills and interests are. And sometimes careers sort of cycle, or their popularity cycle, right? Like right now, we can probably think that, any of the high tech technology jobs are kind of the job of choice right now, right? Because that's what we're thinking about, that's what we're talking about. And maybe 20, 30 years ago, maybe it was education, or maybe it was farming. And don't get me wrong, there's absolutely nothing wrong with education or farming, but it's got to fit the right personality, the person with those interests that are going to thrive in that environment. So the best choice, the best advice is the advice that suits our personality and our interests. And these are some examples of some barriers that might occur. And a fourth one, discouragement. This one is huge because we have so many things to think about when we're trying to build up our grit and get ready to go into that job search moment. And what if we can't get ourselves up for that interview? Or what if we just don't have the energy to phone that potential employer? How do we chip away at that discouragement barrier? Because that is a huge barrier that kind of stops us maybe from taking advantage of some opportunities that maybe are just sitting right there, but we don't have the ability to take that next step to take advantage of that opportunity. So now, this brick wall does look very daunting, but remember what I said? We're going to use our grit and we're going to chip away at these barriers one by one to slowly knock that wall down. And one of the best ways that we can do that is with an action plan. And we just happen to have another great slide that will walk us through the action plan. And the way this chart works is we put one barrier obstacle per row. And for example, we might want to put training in that first barrier obstacle, but within that training, maybe what we've identified is that we need some money for that training. Maybe that's what it is. And one of the ways that we can break down that training barrier is by applying for a student loan. Maybe that's what we need to chip away at that training. And then we think into our mind, when do I want to do this by? When would I like to apply for that loan? Am I ready for that next week? Maybe later on in the year, or maybe next year. That depends on where you're at and your personal situation. Perhaps you don't want to do that training because you're committed. Maybe you're president of the student council and you don't have time to be taking any extra courses right now. So that may postpone that application for the money or for the moving ahead on the training till next year. So you want to, again, take some time to really think through. When I say I want to get some training, but I can't do that right now, keep asking yourself why. Why? Why is it that I can't do that right now? And until you're done answering that question, why, then you've run out of ways to break down that barrier. So as you can see, that question why helps tell you what you need to do to overcome that barrier. So there's one little brick wall chipped away. Another one we want to take a look at is that discouragement barrier. Now that discouragement barrier, like I said, is a very important barrier. And what can we do to chip away at that discouragement barrier? One of the things that helps with that is having a good solid support network. Are you connecting often enough with that family member or friend that truly understands you and your goals and your skills and interests? Maybe you're just not connecting with them enough. Or maybe you don't have anyone in your life who is providing that for you. And let me tell you, there are many great circles of folks that you can connect to within your interest line. For example, for small business owners, there are a variety of different organizations, from chambers of commerce to other small business support groups that meet together. Or even, for example, I'm part of a speaking group that's called Toastmasters, and that's my support network to help me develop my speaking. And they truly are my support network for that. So maybe if you don't have those family and friends, what external support network is there for you? Now, there's one more piece that I want to share with you as far as that discouragement barrier comes into play. I know Lois has taken, and I also have the good fortune to take, Red Cross's most recent program called Psychological First Aid Training. Now, this program is an excellent tool to help us talk about our own support network, talk about where we're at mentally, to be able to get through these times of crisis. This is a tremendous program that really helps build strength within ourselves to help us get through crisis situations. And so think about, when would you like to take advantage of that psychological first aid training? Very beneficial programming. So here we have a bit of an action plan. And I do want to reiterate how important it is that you take the time to identify barriers that apply to you. Identify those ways that you can break down those barriers. These are just some examples that we've come up with to kind of get the creative juices flowing. But you have the ability to find those ways that you can use your grit to break down your barriers and help you get to that job that you're wanting to achieve. What do you think of that, Lois?
I think you did a great job of explaining that to us, because we all sometimes just need some practical tools to help us move forward. And I completely agree. If we can identify the specifics that are blocking each of us, and then one bite at a time chew away at that, knocking out that brick, and pretty soon the wall's got some holes in it and we can see a way forward. These worksheets, if you'd like to have your own to fill in, will be available on our websites. My website is www.fcal.net, as in Flagstaff Community Adult Learning. And it will also be on paintearthlearning.ca. So that's a great spot to just print those out. They're free, ready to use. But whichever tool you use, we hope that you've got some inspiration to start moving forward, that you will find more success in putting your strategies into work at this job search journey, and we wish you all the best. Thanks for your help today, Cindy, and that's great ideas for all of us today.
My pleasure. Enjoyed sharing the screen with you today, Lois, and good luck to everyone building up their grit to knock down those barriers.